This podcast will fail, mostly because nobody's going to listen to it, but you might prove me wrong. Who knows? Episode 42. This podcast will fail. I'm just some guy. Who I am and where I am is completely irrelevant to the conversations that I come here to have with you and with myself. And this month, all of season 3 is about talking to you. So right away, I encourage you to please scroll down a little bit on whatever electronic device you're listening to this podcast on. Click the link and tell me your story. All this month, I'm asking you, any of you who happen to come upon this little recording, to participate and to answer a question. This week's question is, what's important to you? So it's a pretty simple interface, especially if you're on a phone. The link will bring you right up to anchor.fm and allow you to just quickly connect your phone's microphone and answer this question for me. What's important to you? It's not a matter of a person or a place or a thing or an idea. It's all of the above. Whatever that, it's almost like a word association game. Like I say this, you say this, right? So when I say, what's important to you? Just say the first thing that comes to mind, right? The first thing that dribbles off the end of your tongue. So what I'm going to do is hopefully get some responses as we move along here and include your recorded responses in the next day's podcast. I'll also, of course, answer that question myself so that we have something to talk about for the 20 minutes that we are here spending time together. Yesterday, I went with family, was something that's important to me, and I spent some time talking about that. Today, I want to pivot a little bit to a concept, because again, everybody's got something different that's important to them. Person, place, thing, idea. I have a lot of reverence and respect for intellectual honesty. I think that it's a little bit of a complicated sounding term. Like what can't you just say honesty and being honest? Well, first let me draw a distinction between what I consider to be just flat out honesty and intellectual honesty. This is a concept that I talked about early on in season 2. When you talk about folks that find themselves completely wrapped up in things like cognitive dissonance, right? And just refusing to be truly honest with themselves, much less anybody else. Right? The world's full of people that are full of crap. Intellectual honesty to me is something that is so sorely lacking in any of the world. It's hard to. Magnitude is huge. Like everybody's full of crap, but the thing is, they're lying to themselves, or at least when they're putting information or opinions out there, they're not willing to have that honest, intellectually honest discussion. Again, if this is something that resonates with you, please click the link and tell me your thoughts on this or on what's more important to you. Is it more important to you to be true to your feelings or your beliefs, even if those beliefs kind of fall short when stacked up against reality, right? There's no wrong answer. There's really no reason to judge someone else other than if what you're saying and doing harms someone else or could potentially be detrimental. to yourself or someone else. But I want to hear it anyways. I welcome dissent. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm the biggest idiot you're going to meet. You can't hurt my ego. Trust me. And a quick programming note. I've talked many times about my good friend, Conrad. He and I were talking today about a little bit of this. And, he said the same thing. There's no reason for constant self-deprecation and self-loathing if you're just honest, and just be upfront with it. Say what you say, mean what you mean. That's what I want to hear from you. So I want you to tell me your story and tell me what's important to you. But anyways, let me go back to intellectual honesty here, because that's what I'm thinking about today, and that's what's important to me and what's on my mind. The context is that yesterday here in this United States of America, we conducted the end of an election for the President of the United States, election for most of the rest of the government as well, a whole bunch of United States senators and the entire House of Representatives. What's frustrating to me is the level of intellectual dishonesty when it comes to the arguments around it. There's no clear winner yet. There's a lot of speculation on all sides about what this means and what that means, and my guy's going to win or my guy's going to win. And there's a lot of dashed hopes and expectations. Both sides were so sure that there would be a crushing landslide of an election that now, in a day later, as we move through now what will be a very long, slogging process of shaking out the rest of the vote counts and coming up with a winner, the level of intellectual dishonesty is just staggering. Everybody is just blurting out emotional responses, and it's like, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the intellectual honesty as I set that up. That was my call. But I can't do it without focusing on the opposite side. And I hope I don't lose you. You, fair viewer, fair listener who have tuned into this thing and are giving it a shot. People are really reacting on emotion. And it's really tough because the claims being made are just outlandish. They're just ridiculous. And yet that's what drives the narrative, right? The claims of whatever, of cheating, of rigging, of whatever. It just, shut up and let it play out, right? But people can't. People can't just shut up and let it play out. They have to somehow continue to push an emotional narrative because nobody likes to lose, right? Nobody wants, to see their favorite candidate lose. I get it. I'm the same way. And obviously the candidates themselves don't want to lose, right? There's a reason that millions and millions and millions of dollars have been poured into trying to elect somebody. But if you can't even just have an honest conversation about what it all really means and what's actually happening, what purpose are you serving, right? I'll take it away from. Let me take it away from the election stuff for a second and use a different example. So I have an employee who's just got this problem where this person continues to insist on like screwing up their time schedule, right? They don't come to work on time. They keep working through their lunches, which they're not allowed to do. They'll work through their lunch and leave half an hour early. They're not allowed to do that. And I have to keep going after this person again and again and again. And I know I'm working on it. I'm sorry. I got a lot going on. And this is tough because we're in pandemic world. This person needs a name. Shoot. I'll call this person Ferris. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So Ferris just keeps throwing all of these ridiculous excuses at me. And yet finally yesterday, as I had to put the hammer down and say, look, we have talked about this too many times. Finally, this person has a moment of intellectual honesty with me and says, I know. Honestly, I just keep forgetting. And I'm thinking to myself, was that so hard? Right? You twist and turn and you have excuses for why you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. All you had to do was just come out and admit that you made a mistake. It's not so bad to admit that you made a mistake. It's not so hard if you can just have that moment of honesty with yourself and with me. We can get where we need to go so much quicker, right? Pivot back to the national stage and what's going on in this country. The same thing applies. If you could just get past all of the greedy bluster and just be honest and admit, okay, this isn't going my way. It's pretty obvious. You can step away now. But no. Of course not. That's ridiculous. This is wrong. This is not fair. This is being handled on. We're going to sue. We're going to tie this thing up for months. Weeks, probably, not months. Because we can't just have an honest conversation about what the people in this country want. And look, one side, but both sides have to admit that you overplayed your hand. You overstated, right? You were so completely certain that it was going to be a landslide for your side, both sides, but now you're just going to drive yourself nuts trying to cling to, well, that can't be right. How is it possible, right? One side of the country is going, that's insane. How could so many people support this person? This is a horrible human being. How? Why? The other side is sitting there going, oh, how could that person possibly win? Nobody likes them. Everybody knows they're a crook. Everybody knows they're a cheat. Everybody knows that they're faking votes. No, you're both wrong. You're both actually wrong. You both miscalculated. And it is unfortunate that right now 50% of the country I live in disagrees vehemently with the other 50%. That's just where we are. But until people can demonstrate a little intellectual honesty, in other words, I guess I made two kind of complex and not quite related examples, but bottom line is quit lying to yourself. I think maybe that's the. Can you tell I'm working through this live in the moment because I've had intellectual honesty on my mind yesterday and today, but I didn't stop and script this. I like to just kind of monologue. That's what my good friend Conrad likes to say. You're just monologuing. I like to think about these things out loud, and what I see is that people ultimately lie to themselves so that they can feel more comfortable pushing out bullshit narratives to support what they so vehemently want to be real. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And it's like a fear of what? Being proven wrong? What are you afraid of? Why does it hurt so much to lose or to be shown that, you know what, this time around you weren't right? Right? My person at work, Ferris, my employee, who just can't seem to figure out that you have an assigned shift and that's when you have to be here. This is how you work. This is what you do. If you don't like it, I'll promote you to customer. I don't know what else to do. Why all the twisting and turning and just coming up with phony baloney nonsense excuses about everything in the world that prevents you from just showing up to work on time and remembering that, yes, I know you like to get paid overtime, but you have to go to lunch. You are required to go to lunch. It's not optional. Because this person, would be embarrassed if they had to admit to me that they just screwed up? Why? What? It's like, why the ego? I think if I look back at my life, I've seen enough times where I was that person. Sure, we're all young and dumb when we start out, right? Nobody is. Well, okay, that's not true. There's probably some genuinely honest people out there who can just own up and deal with it. But yeah, I remember being full of crap too for a long time about things in general. It's like a defense mechanism, I guess. I guess that's what it comes down to. But I value, back to the whole point of this episode today, what is important to you? What's important to me is intellectual honesty, is being willing to just embrace reality, admit the truth, both to yourself, and then conduct yourself in front of the rest of the world from that position of open honesty. And it's frustrating because there's very little of it in the world. I don't see it happening, and I want to see it happening. But I also want to know what you think. So looking at how we move forward through the week, again, I would love to hear from you. Please click the link in the description. Leave me a little message. Tell me what's important to you. Maybe this was some high-minded gobbledygook nonsense, and maybe what's important to you is your dog. Well, you know what? Tell me about your dog. Tell me what breed. I love dogs. Tell me your breed and tell me your name. That's really important. I don't care who you are. You don't have to tell me your name. But I want to know I want to know about your dog that you love and why that dog's important to you. I want to know about that gift you got that was so important, that you got this signed baseball from your uncle when you were 12 years old, and it was so important because you love baseball so much and your hero signed this ball. Why? Tell me what's important to you. That's what we're working on this week here on this podcast. So I didn't get anything yesterday. That's okay. We'll continue on, and we'll look for hopefully some more folks responding. I didn't say this early on. This is another thing that Conrad and I talked about. I'm all over the map today, right? I'm all over the place. Something Conrad and I talked about too is, hey, look, I'm not going to sit here and like blast this thing out all over my personal social media. I don't generally, the people who know me and know my first name and know who I am, it's not important for me to bombard them with this digital content. It's more important for me to just make these things, publish these things, put them out there, and hopefully you, fair friend and new friend and listener who don't know who I am, and I don't know who you are, but I think it'd be cool to be able to interact with you a little bit and talk to you. So I hope you'll contribute. I hope you will click that link, and maybe you might just hit the share button. You might just turn to a friend of yours online, someone who you've had this very conversation with because it's election season. You might have just had this whole conversation about what happened yesterday and what's happening today. And you want to go, hey, you got to check out this podcast. This guy's got the dumbest podcast name. It's called The Podcast Will Fail. But you got to listen because it's interesting. You do that for me, that'd be cool, man. I'm just being completely intellectually honest with you. I don't think it's going to happen. And Conrad will yell at me about that. But maybe you will, and maybe you'll enjoy it, and maybe we'll continue on, and maybe we'll have some more good conversations as the week goes on. So I think that is about where I finish up, where I stop, and I move on. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll see if we got any responses between overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. Maybe we'll get a response from yesterday. We'll see. We'll get some folks hopefully to get in here and be a part of it. But that'll do it. I will stop here. That's enough for now. If you did take the time to listen today, and if you take the time to respond, thank you so much. And wherever you are, thanks, and have a good one.